All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to A Garden and a Bible Farm. My name is Adeola. If this is your first time meeting me, today we have a huge project on our hands, and it is to pot up the peppers. I sowed approximately 144 peppers, at least 144 peppers, but as with every seed, not all of them are going to germinate. And out of the 144, I got a total of 89 peppers that I'm going to pot up today. So that is what I'm going to show you. And so before I show you actually how you're going to pot up these peppers, meaning how you're going to transplant them from one small cup to a bigger one, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about peppers. But first, let me show you what my peppers look like because they're gorgeous. So here are my peppers, my beautiful peppers. You can see that the wind is blowing and it's giving it some nice wind. These peppers have been indoors ever since I started them. I did not put them out for them to grow because it was too cold. The temperatures are just starting to rise, and peppers, if you don't know, only like heat. They thrive in the heat. If they are found in the cold, they are not going to thrive, they're not going to grow, and more than likely they're going to die. So I've had them indoors for about 1 month. And I started them early because, well, so I can show you so that you don't have to start late. And also because I have projects that I'm working on. So I just want to make sure that my peppers are started in time because, as I'm going to share with you, peppers have a very, very long and slow germination rate as opposed to other types of fruits and vegetables. So here are my peppers. In this tray, I have 89 of them that have grown. I have more than 89, but out of the ones that actually germinated and are growing, I have a good 89, and that is what we're going to put into bigger cups so that they can grow, and it's going to be in those bigger cups until I plant them in the garden. Last year I planted approximately about 89 peppers as well, because I had 70 in ground bed, and then I had some other ones that were in the bags, and I doubled them up in the bags. I also gave some to my sister. I also had customers who purchased. So I had approximately the same amount of peppers. This year, I want to have even more peppers. Out of the 89 that I've grown, not all of the varieties that I want to grow came up. So things like poblano, sweet peppers, I'm going to replant them, as well as one of my favorite peppers that I discovered last year. It was a gift from my husband for Mother's Day. It is called ghost pepper. It is a very, very spicy pepper. And if you don't know anything about my family, know this: we eat a lot of hot pepper. And so the spiciest of spiciest is what we're looking for. And that by far is way hotter than a very basic, to me now, habanero pepper. So we're going to talk about peppers as we go through the season, but I just want to share with you some things that I want you to know and remember about peppers as you're planting them. When you plant your peppers, you want to make sure that you plant them at least about 10 to 12 weeks before they're going to go outside. Like I said earlier, peppers are very, very slow to germinate. And even when they do germinate, they're slow to grow. So you can see how these peppers look after about 4 to 5 weeks. Tomatoes are not going to look like that at around 4 to 5, 6 weeks. They're going to be much bigger and probably a lot stronger than peppers. So you can see how their cousin peppers are very, very tiny when they have their growth. So you want to make sure that you're planting them, or you're starting the seeds approximately 10 to 12 weeks before you put them out. Some people will wait till about 8 to 9 weeks, which is around this time for me, because if I plan on putting anything out in the garden, especially those that are heat loving, I'm going to wait for at least 8 weeks before the next 8 weeks before I put them out. So 8 weeks, 9 weeks, it's still a good time frame. But for me, what I have found in my years of growing peppers is that 10 to 12 week mark is the sweet spot. If I do it outside of that, I will have peppers, but they're still going to be blooming and fruiting way into September, sometimes October, and even November, which is all good, but you may not get as much as you want because the temperatures at that time will completely go down as opposed to the heat of the summer. Okay, so make sure you plant them about 10 to 12 weeks before you plan on putting them out. When you plant them indoors, because you're not going to put them outside unless you live in a warm, loving area. Remember, everything that I'm sharing with you is about my time zone, my area zone, my growing zone rather. And so we are in Maryland zone 7. And for us in Maryland, zone 7, our last frost date is expected to be around April 2nd, April 4th. I don't go with that. I want to make sure that I'm out of the zone, the tendency of there being a frost. And I usually wait till about the second week of May, which is May 15th, which is still great enough time for me to put them outside and to harvest from those plants. So when you're planting them inside and you put them in whatever plugs, like the one I just showed you, or a cup, whatever type of container you're going to grow them in, you want to invest in a heat mat. These heat mats are very, very thin mats that maintain a temperature between 70 to 75 degrees. They're not going to burn your plants. They're not going to scorch your plants. But what they're going to do is they're going to keep the soil warm, because peppers love warm soil. So they'll keep the soil warm, and that will also help with the germination. I have found in my years of growing peppers that whenever I place my pepper plants, my pepper seedlings onto a heat mat, they will germinate very quickly. A lot of people will tell you that they may take 2 weeks, 3 weeks before you even see anything. For me, when I place them on that heat mat, I typically see something within 1.5 weeks to 2 weeks. And it's probably about 10 days. Let's say 10 days to 1.5 weeks. Okay. And so I would typically see the beginning signs of my peppers coming out, and that's because of the heat mat. Of course, you want to pay attention to them. If they're looking somehow funny or the soil is getting overly dried, then you want to pay attention to that and probably take them off the heat mat. Or if you're living in a location where it's not cold outside, you may want to take them outside so that they can get acclimated to the actual elements outside, the wind, the sun, the rain outside. And so you may not have to keep them inside. So make sure you start them 10 to 12 weeks before you plant them out. And then also make sure you put them on a heat mat. Now, when you're growing peppers, and this is going to be for another video, especially when I'm actually planting them into the garden bed outside, you want to make sure that you feed your peppers. Peppers need to be fed in order for them to produce. Last year, we had an abundance, an overflowing abundance of peppers. Peppers were by far my most productive fruit last year. More than my tomatoes, more than any fruit that I was growing, more than okra, more than zucchini, more than anything. I had an overwhelming amount of peppers, and I 100 attribute that to the fact that when I was planting them into the ground, I put a medium, which I'll share with you in another video, into the hole before I put the pepper plant into that hole. Also, another thing that I found was that we planted our peppers directly into the ground. If you don't have land space where you can actually plant into the ground, yes, your containers will be great, but you want to make sure that you're feeding them, because they will suck the nutrients a lot more. And then also when you're watering, those nutrients can also seep through the container. But when we planted it into the ground last year, it just performed so well. So you want to make sure that you're feeding it. When you feed your peppers, most fertilizers have what we call NPK. N stands for nitrogen, P stands for phosphorus, and potassium, the K, stands for potassium. When you want to give your peppers a feeding, you don't want the nitrogen level to be too high, because nitrogen is responsible for making sure that you get green leaves. If you're pushing too much nitrogen into your pepper plants, you're going to get growth, but you're going to get a lot of green leaves. And when the plant is putting too much energy into producing leaves, it doesn't send energy to making the fruit, which is the pepper itself. So you don't want to give it too much nitrogen. What you want to focus on is the P, the phosphorus. You want to make sure that it has enough phosphorus, because the phosphorus is what's going to help you to get the healthy roots. It's also going to help the plant to push out the fruit as well. So we'll talk more about that when we get to actually planting them into the ground. Okay. Also, when you're working with peppers, when they overgrow this tray, you can see them here. They're getting tall. They're not super tall, but they are tall for this plug tray. This is a 72 cell pack. And so you don't want to leave them here for too long, because what can happen is that they can get root bound, and you don't want them to get root bound. And what that means is that when the roots start to wrap around in the plug, then they begin to stress the plant out. And you may sometimes see that the plant looks yellow, it looks brown, it looks like it's not growing, it looks dry. You'll know as you start planting seeds often, you'll begin to know. Like, for instance, I'm looking at one for this plant. I don't know what it is because I don't have the sheet here with me, but whatever this particular pepper is looking a little stressed. Oh, you can't see it. this pepper here, it's looking a little stressed. You may not be able to see it, but either way, it's looking a little stressed, it's looking a little yellow, and that tells me that it's time for me to move it up from this plug into a bigger container so that it can spread its roots and it can grow. Remember, it's just like a human being. You don't want to be confined unnecessarily. Think about it. A little baby who is about 8 months, 12 months, over a year, 14 months, they don't want to be confined. They do not want to be barricaded in a little boxy area. They want to be able to spread their wings and run around. And it's the same thing with your peppers. Peppers want to spread their wings, with all plants actually. They want to spread their wings. They want to spread their roots. They want to pick up nutrients. They want to grow and show you exactly their full potential. So you have to give them that opportunity by giving them more space. So when you're paying attention to your plants, if you see your plants looking like this in the plug tray, make sure that you pot them up. When you're watering plants like peppers, especially seedlings, baby seedlings, never water them from overhead. In fact, even when they're in the garden, don't water them from on top. The reason why is because you can get disease. Even though this is a clean medium, I sterilize all my medium, but you never know what could happen, and you don't want any type of soil to splash back onto the pepper leaf itself, which could actually damage the pepper. Also, you don't want to overwater. When you overwater the pepper, you will see that it could start having fungus and it can start having mold on top of it. It may look white. It may look green. The soil itself may look white. The soil may look green. So you begin to pay attention to those things when you are growing your peppers, or any type of plant for that matter. Okay, so when I was planting my peppers, I created this handout right here. I don't know if you can see it, but on this handout, I replicated the 72 cells that's in the tray. And what I did was I wrote all the peppers that I planned on planting into each of those cell plugs. This helps me tremendously so that I didn't have to create these sticks, these popsicle sticks, or these sticks, which I'm now using popsicle sticks, but these sticks, I didn't have to create these name tags for every single pepper. The reason why you don't want to do that is because if it didn't come up, then you would have wasted your name tag for no reason. So instead, what I did was I created them because I've cut the tray up into 9 cells. So I have 8 of those 9 cells. 8 times 9 is 72. And what I did was I boxed it. I hope you can see this. Okay, maybe you can't because it's really sunny outside, but you probably can see that this is a green highlight. All right, and so what I did was I boxed it per 9 cell plugs, and then I now took one label for the left corner, and I labeled it, and that is what is going to help me. So if I pick up this particular pack, you can see that in the top left it has been labeled Cali Wonder. So these are bell peppers. All of these are bell peppers. Okay, and so if I look at the bottom left or the bottom right of my paper, then I can see that also corresponds to the California Wonder bell peppers. And this is the best way to make sure that you are staying organized. If you don't label your peppers or anything, you can clearly see none of this looks different. They all look the same. If you don't label, even though that these are all the same peppers, but if I pick up another cell pack, which are not bell peppers, they look the same. See? They look exactly the same. So there's no way that I can just assume that, oh, this is a lemon hot pepper. There's absolutely no way for me to know that. So the best way for you to manage that is for you to make sure that you are keeping meticulous notes. Naturally, I'm a note taker. Naturally, I'm organized. If you're not organized, I will strongly suggest that you become organized. You have to have some type of method that you are using to remember the peppers that you have sown. Otherwise, you are going to be confused. And then when you get them into the garden, they're going to be everywhere and you're not going to know what is what. What I like to do is I like to make sure that I group them. So all of my bell peppers are going to be together. All of my habanero peppers are going to be together. All of my sweet peppers are going to be together. All of my cayenne peppers are going to be together. I like it like that. So when I'm harvesting, then I can harvest in one area. So if I know today that I want to harvest cayenne pepper, I just go to the location where cayenne pepper is and I harvest them and I put them in their own basket. And same thing with bell peppers, habanero peppers, ghost peppers, whatever the peppers may be. But if I have them scattered, and you can do whatever you want, but for me, what works best on my farm is to group them so that when it's harvest day, then it makes it a lot easier for me. But more than anything, I can't stress this enough. Have some type of system, whatever system works for you. If when you get that 72 cell plug, it works best for you to individually, whether it comes up or not, individually label them, then do that. If that's what's going to work for you, then I strongly suggest that you do that. I've done that in the past. I just find that I just want to be a lot more efficient this year, a lot quicker this year. I want to save more time. I want to save resources and recycle as much as I can. And if you write with a permanent marker, then you have to keep it for that, whatever you've written on that permanent marker, on that popsicle stick, or on that name tag. All right, so make sure that you have this. Now, what's going to happen now is I'm going to fill up the rest of the cups that I'm going to use in order to up pot these peppers. Some of my peppers have been planted. Well, a lot of them have been planted in twos. And so what that means is that in one little plug, let me show you. So this again is the California Wonder. So you can see here in one little plug, I don't want this to fly away. So in one little plug, I have 2 peppers. Hope you can see this. So 1 and 2. Okay. Now, this is for people who are going to be very careful. If you're going to be rough, I strongly suggest that you do what I'm going to talk about first. What my intentions would have been if I'm not someone that's careful, or if I just didn't have need of these extra peppers, what I would do is I would go through each cell plug and look at the strongest pepper. You'll know it because if I'm looking at this now, I can see this one is flopping over and this one is not. When I hit it, it goes back, but this one flops over. So if I were to do this method that I'm sharing with you right now, what I would do is cut this particular pepper out, get rid of it. Okay. And so I wouldn't have to do anything other than that, but just push this out, this plug. I just push it out, squeeze it at the bottom, and then eventually it will come out. Okay, you don't want to be too rough with it, but you know, the more you do things, the easier it becomes. So you pop it out, and I would just easily, what I would have done is I would have gotten rid of this. Okay, because I think that this one is a lot stronger. But for me, because I want all of the peppers, 89 of them that I see that have come out, I'm going to separate it. Peppers and tomatoes are typically very resilient. They can take a beating, especially tomatoes, but this is not about tomatoes. This is about peppers. And so can peppers. Pepper can take, a tug at their roots, but you want to be extremely careful. You don't want to be nasty with it. You want to try as much as possible to be gentle. So the way I'm going to separate this is like this. And do it gently. As you do it, you will see that the roots on their own will start going to wherever they want to go. Allow it to do that. Allow it to do that. And you can see that they have separated easily. All right. If you're yanking them, if you're pulling them, then what could happen is that you could damage the plants, and you don't want to do that. So now this has become 2 separate plants, and I'm going to put these plants into 2 separate cups. Let me show you how I'm going to do that. So here's a cup that's filled. I work with these red solo cups. I strongly suggest, in fact, you can't do it any other way. You have to create drainage holes. So at the bottom of this cup is a hole. Okay. At the bottom of this cup is a hole. Some of the cups have 2 holes, and it doesn't really matter, whatever works for you. So I guess obviously on the days that I was doing it, some days I put 1, some days I put 2. I use a drill to create this hole. So if you have an electric drill of some sort, then puncture the hole. If you don't have an electric drill, be very creative, use a knife, but just be careful so that you don't cut yourself. And make sure that you create a drainage hole. The purpose of the drainage hole is to make sure that when I water these plants, any excess water that's coming out of the plant will come out, and it won't sit in the plant. You don't want this plant to sit in unnecessary water. You want the water that's not necessary, that's not needed, to run out and be done and over with. So here I have filled up this cup. These are red solo cups. These are I believe 18 ounces. These are cups that I have been reused from last year. Here on this farm, we are very efficient and very economical. We do reuse things. I try my very best to make sure that I don't damage anything. And even if it does have a cut, even if it does have a tear in it, I'm still going to reuse it. Unless the cut is all the way down to the bottom, that's when it's going to go into the trash. I use these, or to the recycling. I reuse my cups. And the best way to do that is to, at the end of the season, clean it out, wash it, and sterilize it. Today, that is what we did as well. We washed them and we sterilized them. Just put them into some hot water. You can add lemon if you choose to make sure that they're sterilized. I know of some people who use Lysol. I don't personally like to use that because, again, this is going to be food that we're going to be eating. So just in case you don't get it out, but whatever floats your boat, just make sure that it's sterilized. You want to make sure it's sterilized so that there's no germs going into your plants, because if bacteria or anything gets into your plants, it can kill your plants, which defeats the purpose. So I've sterilized the cups and we've allowed the cups to sit. My soil, my potting soil, this now is potting soil. I started my pepper seeds in seed starting mix. So remember, seed starting mix, they have no nutrients. It has no long lasting nutrients, but the potting soil does have nutrients. And so I'm going to put the seed, I'm going to put the seedling, where did I put it? Okay, so this is one. Okay, good. The sun is a little bit going down better, so at least you can see. So I have my seed starting mix. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a hole, okay, that's big enough, and I'm going to put this into this. Okay, this into this. When you are doing this, unlike tomatoes can be buried down. When we get to the tomato video, I will show you. But on the stem of a tomato, you will see these white little fuzzy hairs coming out. And what that is roots. They are roots. If I bury that tomato stem down, what it will do is to create more roots. Okay, it will create more roots in the soil. Peppers don't do that. Peppers do not want to be buried too low. They want to be buried wherever they came out of the soil. So you can see this is right here where the pepper came out, and that is where I'm going to bury it to. I'm not going to push it past this, meaning I'm not going to take it past this area. I'm not going to push it past this area. You don't want to do that, because if you do that, you're going to squish the pepper and it's going to become stunted. It's not going to be able to keep growing, and you just don't want to have that issue. So you plant it just to here or wherever your soil is. So for me, this is where it is, and it will become stronger. You will see that the stem will become thicker, because now the roots are able to spread out in this big cup. It has more space. Look how little the roots are here. When I put it in this cup, it's going to be able to spread out and, start to reach for more nutrients. The stem will become, thicker. The wind that's blowing on it, sometimes I have a fan blowing on them at home inside the house, it will also cause it to become a lot stronger. So here's my solo cup. I've created a hole. Okay, you want to make sure that you create a hole. Use your finger and then put it inside very simply. Okay, and make sure you pack it so that it's standing up on its own. Ta-da! So, this is a California bell pepper, California Wonder. That's what it's called, bell pepper. And when I finish doing all of them, I'm going to water them and make sure that they're happy, and then I'll take them back in and put them under the grow lights. So I hope this helps you. I'm going to show you as I'm working a little bit. You'll see how I fill up these cups, and then also how I drill the holes before I fill up the cups, how I drilled the holes, how I filled up the cups, and how I separate them if necessary, because not all of them have two. So I'll put them in here and then just let them do their thing, and then of course label it. I have some popsicle sticks inside, which I'll also show you, which I've already pre-labeled for the 89 that I'm going to do today. And then I'm going to put this under the grow lights, and you'll see how they'll grow. So by the time we go outside to put them in the ground, you'll see how big it becomes. Peppers don't typically get past about 4 feet. 5 feet. I don't know. They can't get 5 feet. Let's just say 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet. So they don't really get too tall, but they do become super heavy, because when their fruit is on it, they become so heavy. They become way down. So you will need to use like a stake, all right, like a stick, which we call stakes, to hold them up, tie them up. And so I'll show all of that. Look, guys, there's a lot to show you. So I can't wait for the season to happen and to start so we can get growing. If you haven't started your peppers, it's not too late. I strongly suggest you head to the store, head to your Home Depot, to your Lowe's, and get the seeds that you desire, that you want to grow. Again, one of my methods and my mottos is don't grow what your family will not consume. If you don't like spicy peppers, don't grow them. There's bell peppers, there's poblano peppers, mild poblano peppers, there's sweet peppers. All right, there are all types of peppers for every taste bud. You don't want to plant and grow and spend your time and energy and effort on what you're not going to grow. Also, now that I've potted these peppers up, you can start feeding your peppers. Once you start potting them up, you can start feeding them. And what that looks like is probably giving it some type of organic fertilizer. The one that I typically use is called fish emulsion. Fish emulsion, you guys, smells like fish, and it can make your house smell like fish. So if you don't like that scent, then I strongly suggest that you find another type of organic fertilizer to give your plants some nutrients. Just like you eat, our plants also need to eat. You can't expect that your plant is going to grow for 6 months with no nutrients. That's not possible. So you have to give it something. Give it whatever you find suitable for you, that's within your budget, that's within your reach, that you can get easily, have easy access to, and make sure that I strongly suggest that whatever it says on the package, do half of that in a gallon of water. Typically, you don't want to overfeed them, because if you overfeed a pepper, it will stunt the growth. Trust me, I learned that the hard way last year by accident. I wasn't supposed to. I miscalculated and I gave it too much. And then after about a week, I noticed that they were turning yellow. And then by 2 weeks, they weren't growing. So I had to restart my peppers. But thankfully, even with restarting them, I still had an abundance. It's really windy out here. I had an abundance of peppers. So let's get into how we're going to fill up the rest of these cups. Then break these peppers into 2, plant them, and get them situated in their new home. I hope you have learned something new. And as always, thank you so very much for watching. Until next time, may the earth yield its increase in your life and in your garden. God bless you. Bye.